We've now got our process running successfully, and we've built the majority of components that we need for this project. What we will be doing fairly shortly is adding all of these components into the Re framework. You may remember that at the start of this project, we selected the Robotic Enterprise Framework template. This is a template which allows the robot to continue running at all times. You'll notice on the left-hand side that there's a framework folder which contains a whole load of workflows which have been pre-created for us by UiPath. The key workflows that we're going to look at initially are close all applications, initialize all applications, and kill all processes. Initialize all applications is simply where we're going to put the Acme login workflow. So rather than having it in the process layer, we're going to have this in one of the first stages within the state machine. Again, I'll show you the state machine in a bit more detail a bit later, but for now, let's just follow along. Let's open up Initialize all applications, and let's take our Acme login from the Acme folder. Click Import Arguments, and at this point, we're going to hard code the value for the username, and we'll use a get password activities to get the password for my username. Select get password. Type the password in the password field. And save the value in a variable called str Acme password. This is exactly what we did previously when we were creating the Acme login component. In the arguments, update the password1 text with str Acme password. And we're done. Next up, remove or disable the get password and the Acme login activity from the process. This is exactly the same thing, we've just done it in a different place now. Great, save the process, and next up we're going to go to the close all applications XAML file. Here's where we'll close down the Acme application and potentially the SHA1 website as well. Although in the SHA1 component, we actually close the website as part of that component, so we don't necessarily need to do that separately. At the moment, we don't actually have a component which will close the Acme application, so let's go ahead and create it quickly. We should be able to do this pretty rapidly now that you've learned how to create so many components. Take the component template. Copy it into the Acme folder. Rename it Acme logout, and let's go and open it in the project folder. Let's quickly update the component to make sure that it contains only the information that we need. We won't have any arguments coming in, so we can remove that. We can also remove the argument in, argument to in, file path in. So what we will want to do is check whether the application is already open. Because if it's not, then we obviously don't need to close it down. Let's identify the Acme application and check the selector to make sure it's generic enough to work on all pages. At the moment, this would only work if the work items page is displaying. So instead, we're going to wildcard after the Acme System 1 text. We're creating a Boolean value called bool screen exists. So if the screen doesn't exist, we don't need to throw an exception. We'll just put a log message to say that the Acme application has already been closed successfully, or at least is not open. If the screen does exist, then let's go ahead and log out. The nice thing about this application is that it doesn't really matter which screen you're on. You always get the home and logout menu bar at the top. For example, if you're on the main dashboard, you still have the home and logout. If you're on the work items, again, you still have the home and logout menu options at the top. So regardless of which screen we're on, we're simply going to click on the logout button. We're going to update the selector to make sure that it works for any page, not just the work items page. Click OK. And then following clicking logout, we're going to click the close button to close down the application. Again, quick check of the selector. And let's make it generic enough. We could just close down the application directly rather than logging out first, but it's good practice to log out of an application if possible. Okay, so we're going to log out and close. Then we don't need the file path exists checks, and we don't need the argument out checks. Cool. Let's log back into the application. Let's run the Acme logout component and see if the application logs out successfully. Fantastic. We might just want to add a log message at the end of that component. Well, I'll let you guys do that. Next up, we'll show how to kill the applications if the logout component doesn't work successfully. At the end of the Acme logout component, let's just do another double check that the application has actually closed. Let's copy the element exists check that we did at the start of the component. Place it below the if statement that we've created. Importantly, let's assign the bool screen exists value to false. This effectively resets the value to make sure that it doesn't give us a false positive. Do another check and then put another if statement. So this time we're going to check if bool screen exists equals true. Let's throw an exception because we were expecting the application to have been closed successfully. The Acme application was not closed successfully. Great. Alternatively, in the right-hand side, let's put a quick log message and say the Acme application was closed successfully. Okay, good stuff. So if for some reason the Acme application isn't closed successfully, we're going to throw an exception. The way the framework operates is that if there is an application exception whilst trying to close an application, we're going to jump to kill all applications. So looking at our project framework, we have a kill all processes.xml workflow. Let's create a small component which is going to kill all processes to make sure that they're definitely closed even if the Acme logout application fails. Once again, copy our component template. This is going to be a generic component because it's not specific to any particular application. We're going to call it generic kill process. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a particular process name, check all processes that are currently running, and if the name matches the process that's been passed in, it's going to kill it. This means we can use this for any particular process name. We simply just reuse that component. In the generic folder, let's open the component generic kill process. Let's tidy up by closing down some of these other components. We'll leave the main and process open as they're ones that we're likely to use quite soon. Quickly update the name. So our argument in is going to be a process name. And hopefully you're starting to see the benefit of having these arguments pre-populated. We'll put a default value of Acme, although we're not sure exactly what the name of the Acme application is actually. So we're going to put a default value of iExplore, which is the process name for Internet Explorer. It's where the Acme application resides. There will be no arguments passed out, and we won't have any file paths. We don't need to check which screen we're on, and we don't need to check a file, and we won't have an argument out. So we're going to create a for each loop to loop through all of the processes, check if they match the iExplore process name, and kill them if they do. Let's take a for each activity, enter it into the perform action sequence, change item to process, and importantly, we need to change the type of that object to a system.diagnostics.process. If you can't see that, browse for types, go into search for process, select the system.diagnostics process. In the in, type process.getProcesses. This will get all of the currently running system processes. And first of all, we're just going to log everything to see what we get. It's typically good practice because then you can see exactly what the name of the process running is. We can do process, and because process is a type of system process, we're able to use the process name property. Let's quickly run that. Also, let's make sure the Internet Explorer is running, importantly. It is. Let's have a look at the output. and we can see a full list of all of the processes that are currently running in our system. And one of them is iExplore. So let's put an if statement and say if the process.process name equals, you could possibly use contains, but it's a bit less specific, iExplore, then let's kill process. And in the process name property, we can put exactly the same process.process name. Also a good idea just to put a quick long message to say that we're killing the particular process, just for anyone to make sure that that's been done. And let's put it as a warn, which means it'll highlight in yellow. Killing process and process.process name. If it's not found, then nothing will happen, and that's not a problem at all. Great, let's run this, see what happens. Internet Explorer, which was previously running, has been killed. Just so you believe me, let's run it again quickly. Great, so we can see that Internet Explorer is open. Click run, let's watch it close. So very quickly, we just need to update close all applications and kill all processes with our brand new components. So first, kill all processes. Let's drag our component from the generic folder, generic kill processes, import arguments, and we're going to leave it as the default, iExplore, fantastic. Close that down, and then close all applications. We're going to grab our Acme logout component, drag it in, check the arguments. There are no arguments, so we're happy with that. It's a great job. We've now got the basis of our framework, and we can start looking at Orchestrator, which is going to help us understand the framework even further.